Thank you very much. So I've got a lot of slides, so I'll probably talk a little bit quicker than normal, but just like frantically wave me down if it gets too much. Does anyone know what this is? This is what I learned how to write code on like 30 years ago. So I've always loved the internet and computers since I was a kid. I used to write video games on a computer like this and name them after girls that I liked. Like being an entrepreneur is way cooler nowadays than it was like in 1983 in Ireland. But I've always stayed involved in kind of the internet and various different things. So did anyone here play Farmville? Yeah, so some people, and a bunch of people who are lying, right, about not playing it. So Farmville was this hideously irritating social game that came out on Facebook a couple of years ago. And it would like clog up everyone's news feeds. You know, people were harvesting strawberries or doing all of these kind of different things. And myself and some friends got really annoyed about it. And we thought, well, what if there was a way to screw with people who were playing Farmville? So we created this app called Farmvillain, where you could do really awful things to your friends. You could give their cows mad cow disease. You could salt the earth on their land. You could burn down their barns. You could do all sorts of terrible, terrible things. And we kind of launched it as a joke. And then we got a couple of thousand users, and then we had tens of thousands of users, and then we had like massive server bills. It was like, oh shit! And so we did what all good tech entrepreneurs do: was like just bundle some ads in there. And so we started generating some revenue, and then we had hundreds of thousands of users, and eventually we had millions of users, and we eventually we sold the company about 7 or 8 years ago now to GameStop out in the US, which is a whole other story that we can talk about a little bit later. But have kind of been involved in internet businesses for a long time kind of after that. So I'm now a managing director at Techstars. So Techstars is does everyone know what Techstars is? Does anyone know what Techstars is? Okay, so some people, good. I have to tell our PR team to work harder. So Techstars is one of the biggest accelerator programs in the world. We invest in hundreds of companies a year, over 1,500 companies so far around the world. We run programs everywhere from Adelaide, Dubai, London, Berlin, New York, LA, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm also a venture partner at Zeroth AI, which is an AI and machine learning accelerator based out of Hong Kong. And I've invested, I guess, in like 28 or 29 companies now. This is some of the folks that I've worked with. So I'm going to tell you a couple of stories about these companies and my own experience in terms of scaling businesses and getting more users and doing lots of interesting things. Before we start, there is some bad news. So, how many people want this for their business? All right. Again, a bunch of people just not telling the truth, right? But I can tell, right? I went to a Catholic school in Ireland. So everyone wants this. The reality is actually life is not fair. So unfortunately, it looks a little bit more like, let's see if this will slowly appear across from the left. No, okay. It looks a little bit more like this, right? So you get your, I don't know if Mike is here, but you get your tech crunch of initiation, then the novelty wears off, then you're kind of super depressed because your business is going nowhere. You've got like some wiggles of false hope. A lot of companies, at this point just die. And then you kind of, get better and better and better. You scale and scale and scale, and eventually, you IPO or you get bought out, or, there's some upside for you, right? So hopefully all of you get to this point. And very few of you have this point, although I will say every entrepreneur exists in a state of either total happiness or total despair. And like there's very little room for the middle ground. It's always like, oh my God, yes, we signed this incredible, oh my God, our servers have fallen over, oh my God, this incredible thing has happened. So hopefully you all get to the upside of buyer. And hopefully some of the tips that I'll share today will give you some idea of this. And it's not all bad, right? This was the first website back in 1993. So we're still in the relatively early days of the internet, right? It's 24 years in. We're still very early days in wearables. We're still only 10 years into mobile. We're very early days in machine learning, AI, a whole bunch of different areas. So lots of opportunities. The one thing I will say, did everyone see this, by the way? The SpaceX blooper reel is one of the best things I've ever seen. And then amazing at the end. But the one thing I will say is like, you do just have to do it, right? I've met a lot of companies over the last 20 or 30 years who have talked a great game about starting something and have prepped and prototyped and never actually launched a product. So you do have to crash. You just have to do things and try them out. And this is a great quote from Reid Hoffman at LinkedIn, right? How many people have been embarrassed by the first version of their product? Right, everyone's hand should be up. If you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've launched too late. which is a truism. So here are just some things to think about before we start scaling. And these are actually kind of important to think about. So how many people use Instagram? So you remember using Flickr or another site before Instagram came out when you would upload a photograph? Right? So it took ages, right? You would put a photograph up, you would caption it, you would do all of these things, and at that point you would then start uploading it. And so it was like kind of watching a snail go across the pavement. It was a very slow process. When Instagram came out, they did something really interesting. You took the photograph, you added your filter, and at the point that you started captioning, they started uploading, because there was kind of an implicit agreement that you had made that if I'm going to go to the bother of captioning it and sharing it with my friends on Facebook or Twitter or wherever else, I'm actually going to go the full distance and actually upload it. So they started uploading here, so you will be tapping in hashtag avocado on toast or whatever. You'll be tagging your friends on Twitter, and then you would click upload, and it would happen almost like magic. All right? So they'd been uploading in the background all the time, but it just felt really, really fast. And that was one of the big things that moved the needle for the Instagram guys, was it actually felt a little bit like magic. It was like, how are they taking this 1 or 2 megabyte photograph and uploading it that quickly? Like this does not compute. But actually what they were doing was uploading it in the background while you were picking your hashtag or figuring out who to tag into your photograph, right? So make your product fast. It needs to feel like magic. If anyone here is building an app, I can always tell when people build apps on hybrid platforms, because you get that kind of little spinning circle in the middle of the screen when it takes ages and ages and ages to load. So little things like that, they irritate users. There's a lot of data out there that will show that for every second it takes for your product to load, particularly if you're building obviously a software product, you will see a decline in the retention rate of users, right? So people get super pissed off when things don't happen quickly. This is something that Ozan covered this morning, right? Make it really clear what your product does. This is a company I invested in last year. The company is called Party with a Local. Is anyone confused about what that business does? Okay? Make it super clear what it is that your company does. You don't necessarily, not everything has to be, the name of your business, crmcompany.com or whatever, but, make it obvious in your pitch or in your communications with people what it is that you do. I get dozens of pitches probably every day, certainly hundreds in any given month. And I would say at least 70 or 80% of them, I literally have no idea what the person is pitching me. Like if I can't get it in 2 or 3 seconds, you've kind of lost me. So make it really clear what it is that you do. Make it really easy to use. So again, and we'll touch on another example in a minute, but this is a company called Drink Easy that I invested in. So they make chatbots for businesses that want to sell their products. This one helps them sell wine and spirits and beers and various different things. They send you a message, they analyze your taste profile and go, oh, we think you'll like this drink. And you just type in hell yes, and they ship it to you, right? Like it's pretty easy to use it. It's using a paradigm that people are used to. So people always use their phones, use their messaging platforms. These guys plug into SMS, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, and it's coming to a bunch of others before too long. So make it super easy for people to use. Think about what's the action you want to drive. Are many people here users of Snapchat? Okay, so when you open Snapchat, the first thing you see is the camera. What Snapchat wants you to do? They want you to take photographs and share it with people. So if you go onto a screen that's not the camera, right, it's introducing a layer of friction before you get to the point that they want you to get to. So think about the action that you want to drive and get to that point really quickly for people. So Snapchat opens straight into the camera, take your photograph, add your stupid sunglasses or whatever else, and then send it off to the world. Why does it need to be simple? Right? Here is the dirty little secret, okay? And please don't tweet this out. But most people are actually idiots, right? I spent 20 minutes waiting for a friend of mine the other day. He was going through passport control in London. And I stood at the information desk at the train station at Gatwick Airport and just listened. I took my headphones out because, first of all, I saw the facial expression of the guards at the desk, and I was like, what are people asking them? And if you do that, right, you'll find out very, very quickly that people really actually need to be shepherded towards the things that you want them to do. So make things really, really simple, because actually you will be surprised at how many people will break the stuff that you've spent years building and perfecting, or your incredibly imaginative user interface that they just don't understand and therefore will never use again, right? So make your stuff really, really simple. Use the right tools as well. So this is, again, just a simple hygiene factor. If I meet companies and they're building something that has some sort of location services layer, and they're trying to build all of that themselves, it's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to take a lot of time. It's going to lead to a lot of failure. Sorry, I'm going to go back. So use the Foursquare layer, right? If you're going to do, customer interaction, there's like tons of tools out there. Zendesk, Intercom, others. If you're going to do payments, Stripe, et cetera, like don't try and build everything yourself. When I started companies the first time, whatever, 15 years ago, if you wanted to build a social network, it would cost maybe $10 million, and you'd need 100 engineers. Right now, you can cobble something together really quickly, effectively for free by just using freely available APIs and prototyping tools. Again, coming back to making things simple for people, this is one of the best websites on the internet if you're an early stage company, right? Useronboard.com is the website, and I mean we'll share these slides so you can see them again. But this just teaches you how to get people onto your product, how to tell them what to do and what not to do, and it's just really interesting. They do teardowns of lots and lots of big successful applications and products that you can see where they've done smart things and where they've done dumb things. See what real people do. This is a product called Peak by User Testing. So you can get real live human beings to test your product and see their reaction. So it's a webcam that films their face while they're looking horrified or looking confused and trying to figure out how to actually engage or interact with your product. And they have a paid service, obviously, where you can do it for longer. But this gets you 5 minutes of... Because the tendency we all have is to show our friends and our family and people that we know our product and go, isn't this great? And of course, they're going to go, yes, you're amazing, instead of going, no, this is rubbish, you're an idiot, right? So it's better to get real people to test your stuff out because obviously real people don't care about your feelings, and so they'll tell you the truth. And test stuff all the time as well, right? I mean, again, a lot of this is talking about software, and I'm conscious that there are some hardware companies in the room, but you should constantly be kind of A/B testing different variations of your product and different variations of different screens within it, because if you're not, you're going to be missing out on some huge numbers. Because what you want to do is get to your aha moment, right? So your aha moment is in Facebook. They figured out that once you connected with 4 or more people on Facebook, you were much more likely to come back and continue using the product on an ongoing basis. With Twitter, they found, so in the very early days of Twitter, loads of people would sign up, and you can still go back, it's kind of funny to see it. Loads of people would sign up, they would create an account, and then they would go on and they would post, just signed up for Twitter, not sure what all the fuss is about. And then they would go back 2 days later, and that would still be the only message there. So like them screaming into the void. And then they would go back a couple of days later and it would still be the only message there, and so they'd never go back again. And what Twitter figured out was you needed to start following at least 4 or 5 people so that when you went back to the site on an ongoing basis, there was fresh content and new stuff there. And so now when you sign up for Twitter as a new user, they force you to follow people like BBC News or Justin Bieber or whoever tweets the most frequently nowadays, right? So finding that aha moment of what's the kind of secret sauce that will get your users engaged is really important. And when you do, don't be afraid to change. This is a location-based services company called Bourbon, which allowed you to check into places, share photographs with your friends, right? Very similar to Foursquare, Goala, and lots of others that were out there at the time. I don't think, probably a bunch of people in this room are still using Bourbon without knowing it, but effectively what they found was they had this ability to add filters to the photographs that you shared on Bourbon, and what they found was loads of people were going on, taking a photograph, adding a filter to it, and then not sharing their location. They were taking a photograph of that photograph and sharing it on Twitter or sharing it on Facebook, and they went, oh, that's kind of interesting. Maybe this filter business is going to turn into something that's actually quite big. And so they pivoted out of being a location services business and into a business called Instagram, which 13 months later sold for somewhere north of $1 billion. So when you see that aha moment, when you see what happens when users get super engaged with your product, don't be afraid to pivot, because getting it right creates this viral loop, right, where people will get excited about your product, they'll use it more frequently, they'll tell their friends about it, and you get this kind of viral coefficient, right, this kind of viral growth. What you don't want really is this kind of very incremental, steady growth of acquiring one user at a time. You want each new user that you acquire to tell 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 or hopefully 100 of their friends, right, because your viral coefficient increases and you start acquiring way more users in that way. The other thing I would say is find your North Star. So this is, it's a little bit kind of Silicon Valley buzzwordy, but finding the kind of metric that you track that's more important than anything else is worthwhile. So everyone remembers MySpace, right? MySpace versus Facebook. MySpace's core metric that they tracked were user registrations, right? User registrations is a vanity metric. If you have 1 million users, but none of them are actually using your product, you have no users. and MySpace were tracking like how many people had actually signed up. Facebook's core metric that they focused on and the number that they wanted to grow over and over and over and over and over was the number of daily active users. Right, that was the thing that they focused on. Stripe, who I mentioned a little while ago, a lot of people used to say, why is your core metric not the average number of transactions per user? But actually, that's not really a very good metric because probably most users come onto the platform, mess around once or twice, and never transact anything, so the number will be super low. So it's the total number of transactions that they track, which is much more valuable. So, Airbnb track total number of nights booked. So find that kind of North Star. It's almost like your mission statement, like what is the number that you're trying to increase all of the time that your efforts go towards, right? You have lots of different metrics that you'll track, but there should be one overriding one that you want to go kind of up and to the right on an ongoing basis. In terms of scaling and getting in front of people, partners are incredible. So I worked with a company called Keep, which is a rewards network. We reward you for your achievements in games and apps, getting you high score in Mega Jump, and we'll give you, some free fried chicken, in this case from Lawson's. So when we launched in the Japanese market is notoriously difficult to penetrate for a variety of different reasons, linguistic and cultural and lots of others. But it's huge for mobile gaming. So when we launched, we did a partnership with Lawson's, which is kind of like a 7-Eleven, right? It's a big chain of convenience stores, kind of one on every corner. And the rewards we offered were sponsored by Lawson's, so they gave away fried chicken is very popular in Japan. So they gave away fried chicken. They stuck this poster up in every Lawson's in Japan, and it had games that Keep rewards were available in. So for our partners, their games got tons and tons of downloads. Lawson's got lots and lots of people coming through their door because there were lots of rewards being redeemed, and everyone was happy, right? We probably acquired tens of millions of users in Japan in a matter of days just by having this poster in locations. They have scale, right? So this is the party with the local guys when they launched a new product, Bud Light, which has millions of followers, tweeted about them, right? And again, this drove a huge amount of engagement, huge numbers of downloads. They can bring users. This is a company called Foxy, which is a chatbot that allows you to talk across multiple chat platforms. So if I'm on WhatsApp, I can talk to you on WeChat and so forth. They've done a partnership with both Viber and Kick, which has added 500,000 users in less than a week to their platform. So again, like lots and lots of users coming via these partnerships. Right, this is a company called Paranoid Fan, which is a mapping product for live events. So they'll tell you, where's the shortest queue for the restroom at a sports event, or where can you go to get food or various different things. And all of their partners flash up their app and download links and so forth on the screens. Like this is 80,000 people at a football game in the US seeing this, which is obviously fairly significant scale. So partners, sorry, I'll come on to the media now in just a sec. Partners are incredible, and don't, a lot of people look at big corporates and think, oh, I could never engage with them. They're just too big, or they're too huge, or they're too difficult, or anything else like this. Paranoid Fan, when we invested in them, had 150,000 users. And so they went to all of these, Jacksonville Jaguars, Washington Redskins, and a bunch of others. And because the product was good, right, and because they had a very simple kind of partnership model that they were able to apply, they were able to get in the door with these people, right? They've gone from 200,000 users, or 150, whatever, when we invested in them, to now probably knocking on the door of 30 million users off the back of partnerships alone. So that just shows you the strength that some of these companies and organizations can bring. And the one thing I would also say with corporates, or any organization that you might want to partner with, in a lot of cases they're desperate to work with startups, right? They want to engage, they want to understand like what is innovation, or whatever the question is that they want to answer. So I think having those conversations with them is a valid use of time and can produce fairly significant results. The other person to spend some time with, and again, I'm not sure, Mike Butcher from TechCrunch will be here a little bit later. He can tell you a little bit more about it, I'm sure. But I always tell the companies that I invest in to over-index on PR, right? Media coverage is incredible. This was, when we launched Farmville, one of the first newspapers to cover us, or publications to cover us outside of Irish publications, was this Kotaku, which is 60 million visitors a month, very influential, very popular gaming website. And in the very early days of the company, they wrote about us. I mean, you can see this was, whatever, a couple of days after it launched, but it was like 30,000 votes, 170 comments, all of these kind of different things. This drove probably at least tens, if not hundreds of thousands of users for it. And I've seen this over and over and over and over again with media coverage. Like even getting on if I go on the radio in Ireland, just to talk about, like they'll ring up every so often and go, oh, can you talk about the internet or whatever? And so I'll go on and talk shit for 10 minutes and someone will ring up going, this is amazing, like I want to invest in companies, can you help me do that, right? So getting into media is unbelievably valuable, particularly if it's targeted. If you're a B2B company, right, if you can get into vertical specific media. With Keep, we always got into Adweek, DigiDay, Campaign, The Drum, those types of publications. And every time we did it, we would get phone calls from brands, from agencies, from people who wanted to work with us, right? So getting into the media is super important. Now figure out where you need to be, right? Because getting into TechCrunch or the Next Web or, tech.eu or, any of the local places is unbelievably valuable. But, if you're a construction company and you need other people in the construction industry to learn about you, well then, being on Product Hunt maybe is not the best route. But figure out where you need to be, like, analyze the landscape, whether it's the kind of trade media publications or the tech media publications or the mass media publications in your area, and start building relationships with those people, because I guarantee you it will pay off. If you're launching a product and you want to get Silicon Valley VCs to invest and you're not on Product Hunt and you haven't been covered by TechCrunch, those are two kind of little red flags. It's like, oh, why are they not here? So you got to figure out where you need to be and figure out those publications that are important. Because one of the first things that I'll do when you come along and go, here is my company, we are called blah.com and we are Uber for walking dogs, right? First of all, I'll go, no. But assuming I was interested in the company, I would do a search, right? And I would look and see, okay, are you on Product Hunt? Has anyone spoken about you in any of the media? I would go and look at your Twitter feed. I would look at you on LinkedIn. I would look at you on Facebook. Like, I'm looking for signals, right? And so if TechCrunch have covered you and you've got like 700 upvotes on Product Hunt, it's like, oh, actually, there's maybe something here. You've got 5,000 followers on Twitter and loads of people are engaging with you. I'm kind of going, oh, there's something here. I go to your Google Play page and you've got a 4.8 rating out of 10,000 reviews, right? All of these things are little boxes that are mentally being checked off in my head that are really important. So figure out, the media connections that you need to make and make them, and be nice to journalists, right? Like, journalists are not there to like just for you to pump information into them and them to then spew it out onto the pages of whatever blog they use. This is not a journalist. This is what happens when you're an Instagram influencer and your page goes crazy. These are all your notifications coming in. But journalists get pitched effectively all of the time. So being nice to them, building a relationship with them, knowing how to pitch them is really important. So Mike from TechCrunch wrote and updates regularly a great piece about how to pitch them. And then Blonde 2.0, who are a great PR agency, have a how to pitch me section on their website that I strongly recommend. I mean, there are a bunch of resources out there that will teach you how to effectively pitch journalists, but these are two of the best ones, because you don't want to just be part of the general noise that's coming in for people, right? Because, like, I was a journalist before I did any of this technology nonsense, and you used to get tons and tons of pitches from PRs and different people every day, and your phone would ring all the time, and all of this kind of stuff. Be nice to people; they'll be nice back to you. Be personal when you engage with them, right? Best way to get a journalist to like you is to reference a story they've already written. Hey, Eamonn, I really enjoyed that story you wrote a couple of weeks ago about, mischief in Wired magazine. I'm working on X that is related to something that you talked about. Would love to share a little bit more information, right? You've flattered me. I'm going to go, oh, you enjoyed my story? Oh, well, thank you. Tell me a little bit more about what you're working on. So be personal. Like, so this is the kind of shit that I get all the time, right? Hello, bracket merge contacts first name. I am really keen to discuss how we can support your agency's future growth, right? Number one, that is not my name. Right, my parents did not call me Merge Contact's first name. It may have crossed their mind at some point, but thankfully they didn't follow through. Also, I'm not an agency, so this is not good. Hey, Eamonn, I saw an article today confirming native advertising in the UK. 15% of your budget will be dedicated to native advertising by next year. Really? Really? Do you know me? You know what my budget is? Incredible, right? This is the kind of shit that people send all the time that automatically gets deleted. Or worst case scenario, if it's even more annoying than this, I will mark it as spam, right? And when I mark things as spam and other people mark things as spam, it means that your messages stop getting delivered to people's inboxes. So don't be annoying. It's a really bad idea to do. Be flattering, right? This led to Brian, who's the CEO of Keep. Sent this message to the CEO of American Express. Taking a fly at this, not sure it's ever going to reach you, but I'm going to try anyway. You're inspiring. Who doesn't like being called inspiring, right? Leading the charge in building at the world's freshest financial everything company. Now, there are a lot of ways to describe American Express. This is not one of them. However, if you work at American Express, this is incredible to hear. It's awesome and daunting at the same time. Yes, that's correct. My job is incredible, and I'm also very good at it. You brought a lure to points that people fight tooth and nail for. It's mind-blowing. Love to trade some thoughts over lunch or dinner when I'm in New York. I get mobile, I get gaming. Happy to provide my perspective into how rewards layer will rule the world, and it might not be ruled by American Express. Oh. Interesting. I want to hear more. Here's the latest profile they did of me in the media to show that I'm an actual real person, like someone in the media cared enough about me to write about me. Looking forward to it would make my year, which I thought. This part I was like, don't send that. That was a little bit over the top, but American Express replied. He had lunch with the CEO a couple of weeks later, and they ended up participating in our Series A, right? So this is Flattery getting you funding. Flattery, like this, can also work with journalists. I mean, obviously, don't layer it on too thick, right? It doesn't need to be like Donald Trump's makeup. Just be nice, like be human to people. Just some tips. I'm going to run out of time in a minute, but I'll fly through this. These are places that you can find people who are talking or blogging about your sector, your competitors, your area of interest, right? Talk to those people, favorite tweets, follow them, engage in conversations, be brief, don't send like super long emails. The last way to scale is to buy users, right? So, you can go out and acquire millions of users if you have, tens or hundreds of thousands of pounds or dollars or whatever currency, or millions of them. However, it's also very tricky, right? When you buy in users, they don't always stay engaged, they don't always stay retained. You've got to get this balance between customer acquisition costs and lifetime value, right? Because if you get it wrong, you're going to run out of money very quickly, and when you run out of money, then obviously you're dead, right? From a company perspective. So there's lots of places that you can buy users. The one thing I would say is if you can think about how you organically scale, you're going to have a lot more fun than paying tons and tons of money for people. When you get to a certain amount of scale and when you understand your users and you understand your North Star metric and you understand the types of people that you should be targeting, then I think you can start kind of thinking about buying users and paying for folks. We'll skip over these because they're not actually quite so interesting, but these are just simple ways of scaling. Mailbox did a great job of manufacturing scarcity, made it difficult to get their product, and you had to tell your friends about it in order to get to it quicker. This is the classic, the original growth hack. Anyone who had a Hotmail email address used to have this added automatically to the bottom of all of their emails, right? Really simple way to acquire users. Dropbox, get free space by sharing it with your friends, right? These are all very, very simple little mechanics that actually all still work, right? People are not immune to any of this stuff. How many people here have t-shirts for their company or branded merchandise? Right, so I wear company t-shirts all of the time, mostly because I'm lazy, but also if people spend a little bit of money buying a nice t-shirt, I'll wear it, right? The SendGrid, who filed to go public yesterday, SendGrid make the best hoodies in the world, right? I will wear SendGrid hoodies all day long. They're unbelievably comfortable, and if you walk around a lot of tech conferences, you'll see other people doing that, so turn your users into billboards. And don't ignore, your retention is obviously really important, right? Scaling your product is hugely valuable, but you need to obviously retain the users that you have as well. These stats are just unbelievable, right? A 5% increase in retention can mean a 30% increase in profitability, right? And obviously it's much easier to sell to someone who's already bought into your company. And lastly, it's really important to stand out, right? It's really important to be doing things that are interesting, innovative, being in the media, being covered by all of these people for a couple of different reasons, right? One, obviously, people will talk about you, you become way more interesting, people will engage way more with you. The other viral growth thing that's not in here that I should mention is the more that you stand out, the more that you'll get noticed by Google and Apple, all right? So how many people here use Duolingo? Right. Okay, you should use this app called Lingvist instead, it's amazing, but I'm biased. Duolingo got to 200 million users, and if you look at a lot of the kind of stuff that they talk about, how they got there, it was by engaging with Apple and Google and getting featured. Every time Duolingo gets featured on the App Store page, or as kind of app of the day or editor's choice or whatever, it's worth 2 million downloads, right? 2 million downloads in a day. So if you can engage with those folks, if you can stand out enough, if you can get featured, if you can get into the media, you can scale your product and you can do really, really interesting things. That is all from me. This is me on Twitter. Feel free to ask me any questions. I'll be around for the rest of the day and the rest of the conference. Thank you very much.